Hello and welcome to our webinar, Enhancing the Digital Customer Experience in the Food Industry. My name is Chris Caro, and I am the brand coordinator here at Fulcrum Digital. And we'll be taking you through this webinar today. Again, a recording of this webinar will be sent out to all registrants as well. So no need to take notes. I mean, of course, we always love eager note takers and we love questions as well, but a recording will be sent out. So just be sure to pay attention, ask questions as you seem fit. We have a Q&A session at the very end of this. If we run out of time and are unable to answer your question during this webinar, our presenter, Abhilash, will be able to follow up with you directly afterwards. And with that, I would like to introduce you to our speaker for today. Today's presenter is Abhilash Krishnaswamy. He is the VP of Products here at Fulcrum Digital. He's been in the business a long time, and he's been able to succeed in this industry by constantly staying ahead of these trends and constantly innovating. And that's what makes him such an expert in food industry, not only just the food industry, but also the tech industry as well. And with that, I would like to introduce Abhilash. How are you, sir?
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for the kind introduction. I'm doing fantastic. I hope at this time, most of our audience are attending this webinar from their home. Firstly, thank you one and all for participating in today's webinar. As Chris introduced, we are basically talking about how the digital experience and communication actually is playing a vital role in the ever-changing food industry, the food and hospitality industry. As part of our webinar today, we're going to talk about a couple of things. We'll start with sharing the analysis that we have done, what other industry experts have done in the emerging trends in the food and hospitality industry. We will also detail out what are the importance of this customer experience. How does this customer experience and these ever-changing trends make or break companies? We'll quote some examples of what we have seen, in terms of technology adaptation, in terms of organizations adapting to not only technology, but also for the new trends that are introduced in the market. This trend could be something which was because of the change in the need of the customer, but it's also the change in the mindset of the folks who are running these hospitality industry and their research and their outcome of what is that is more suitable and what is that would actually improve my organization as a whole. So those are some of the things that we're going to talk about today. We'll also summarize this with the different learnings that we have. And as Chris mentioned in the earlier stage, we'll be concluding this with a 10 to 15 minutes of a Q&A towards the end of our session. So with that, transformation. Now, transformation is a very broad classification. Obviously, when it comes to food industry or hospitality industry, you can look at it from the perspective of exactly what is happening with the need of what is being served. So there is one school of thought where the focus is more on, okay, what are we actually serving to the customer? Are we serving the right thing? Are we matching the customer's expectation? Then there is another school of thought or area of thoughts where the participants, that is your consumers, the customers who come to the cafeteria, how is their expectations changing? What is their demand now? What they are perceiving that an hospitality or a food industry has to provide, and where is that gap that is there? Obviously, when it comes to running an operation like this, the health and food safety is of prime importance. How are people perceiving this? How is the wellness being perceived in the industry? We'll also talk about other trends like the existing trend of loyalty, but how is the perception of this trend being changed by the ever demanding the engagement and the transparency that the general public is expecting. We all know that there is a change in the way the food industry operates these days. Not just food industry. You talk about retail, talk about other commercial cosmetic industries. this change to how the business is actually done remotely over the internet, over the cloud. So how is this factoring in terms of the expectations of the customer? We call it the home delivery boom. How is this going to influence organizations like yours? And most importantly, how is the millennial generation or the Gen Z's customers, how are they changing, or how is their expectations changing in terms of what they perceive from the food industry, and what is their expectations, and whether the organizations like yours are they ready to actually meet these expectations? So these are some of the things that we will talk today. So why don't we get into the details of each of these the trends that are there out there in the market. The first important emerging trend, the digital experience gap. Now, what is a digital experience gap? There's a survey that was conducted by PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, in the year 2017-18, where they spoke about what is the importance of customer experience. Customers, people who come to your cafeterias, people who come to your hospitality business, the expectations are changing. They are expecting more information to be presented to them in a more speedier and a convenient manner. They want it to be readily available. All the data and information about the food that they're eating, they want it to be readily available to them. People are more interested in knowing what they're eating. So knowledge appears to be another important and vital point where they want to be equipped with the information. Service, of course, it's a customer-centric industry, it's a hospitality industry. So service has always been one of the important points. But when it comes to service, it's not just the service that is provided inside the cafeteria. People are expecting the digital service. How do the companies, cafeterias, the cafe employees, how do they convey that information that these the particular cafe or that particular organization is actually providing that particular the demanded service from your customers? So that seems to be another important thing. Now, of course, if you consolidate or encapsulate all these things, the most important thing that we have analyzed and we found as an outcome of this statistics is the efficiency and the convenience that the customers are expecting, be it the knowledge in terms of service, in terms of information that is provided to them. They want it to be accessed in a more efficient manner and in a convenient manner. Digital information is the name of the game. Everybody wants to view this digital information readily, not just after entering a cafeteria or entering into your hospitality space, but even before that. Consumers want to know what is that is there, and they want to communicate with you. And when you look at this, the analysis, the trend, you'll notice basically there are several parameters that have been factored in. Broadly speaking, out of this trend basically was, it's a worldwide initiative out of from 12 countries. There were questionnaires and people were questioned on different things, and PwC took a sample size of 15,000 participants. And out of this, the important trend that was identified is basically the efficiency and the convenience of not only the food availability, but it's also about the information availability. So if you look at it, your customers, they've been having the offering that you are providing from your cafe. Obviously, there is more need and demand for a different type of food with different attributes, and they want information. But beyond what is readily available in the cafe, the customers are also expecting that information to be conveniently and efficiently available to them, even outside of the cafeteria. Another key thing that you would notice, there are a lot of digital and branding related information that are something which the customer perceive it as important. Things like loyalty program, technology which helps them where they can view or perceive that information, personalization, and the mobile experience seem to be some of the key things that stand out as part of this analysis that have been conducted. Now, what is the purpose of these? What is the purpose of this analysis? This analysis simply try to compare how is customer experience playing a vital role in terms of not only enhancing customers behavior or their expectation, but it's also about how does it relate to where consumers are ready to pay a premium for whatever the food that is being offered. Going further into this research or this analysis also try to understand the same statistics from the different industry point of view, be it running a cafeteria in a healthcare, or in a restaurant, or could be in a school or a university. It tries to look at the level of importance what the customer feel versus the actual perceived level of satisfaction. Now, if you look at this statistics, on an average, there seem to be a deviation of anywhere between 8 to 33% in pretty much all industry. The numbers are a little higher from the airlines, healthcare, and the pharmaceutical spaces. But even if you compare it with other area, there is still a huge gap between what is customers' expectation versus what is the actual level of satisfaction that they are achieving. So there seems to be a gap. And this gap is the important area where organizations like yours can utilize this opportunity and you can enhance this customer experience. Now, what is the purpose of that? As I mentioned before, a better customer experience directly translates to better customer participation. Better customer participation alone is not a thing. Better, you guys all have been expert, working in this area. Some of you are have a lot of experience working in different industries. But the most key thing that you would notice is it's just not about enhancing the digital experience to just increase the participation. It's about how do you meet the need of the customer where the customers are ready to pay a premium if they get all the information, not just the food, in a more convenient and an easy manner, and a place where they are actually ready to pay a premium in order to achieve that. So that's where the digital experience comes into play. And that is how it basically is not only expanding your customer base, it is also expanding the outreach that you have with the customer, the communication that you have with the customer. Another key feature or trend that have been observed here is the health and wellness. And this is interestingly not something which an individual perceive. This is something which the spectrum of an organization which participates, where a consumer is part of, also perceives. Now, if you are in business and industry running cafeterias, BNIs as we call it, or hospitals, or universities, or K to 12, the schools, one of the key thing is the perception of what is good for us or what is good for an individual has shifted. More and more folks are focused towards eating healthy food. The factor of how wellness is actually driving their overall life journey is something which people have started taking it in a more serious fashion. The overall perception of what actually drives the expectation of the consumer is something which is being changed. Now, what is the purpose of this Now, yes, there is a health and a wellness related drive that is there for individuals as well as organizations where your cafe is being run. What is the the important derivative of it? There are certain traditional drivers which has always played a vital role in terms of how a cafeteria is run, how profitable your cafeteria is run, how do you attract more customers, things like what's the cost of the food that you're serving, does it taste good, are you providing it in a more easily readily available manner, things like what are the new variations that you're providing, things that probably is not available around. Consumers are trying, expecting something new, something tastier. Yes, these were traditional drivers. All of you have tried to, or have been trying to actually improve on those things, try to bring in new capabilities in terms of food as well as the type of food or the styles of food. Those are something which have been driving your sales up. But in addition to that, there are certain new drivers which have actually come into play. When it comes to the customer's expectation, people are not only expecting your traditional things about whether my food is tasty or is it cost effective or whether it's experience, how or is it expensive, depending upon how the consumer is viewing. More and more consumers have started moving towards, am I eating an healthy food? How is my experience that's there with the food agency that I am interacting with? Be it a small cafeteria, a big restaurant chain, it doesn't really matter. What is my experience that I have? 50% of the consumers of which this analysis was done was uh, you know a trend analysis that was conducted by one of the major research and analysis agency called Deloitte. They conducted a research in the year 2015, and out of the 5,000 odd customers that they spoke with in the 50 and 40 plus industry leaders whom they discussed this with, majority of them basically um, are considering food is not just what they eat, it is also about the experience, and that experience cascades into their livelihood, the health factor of it. Traditionally, things which were not seen as a factor in terms of what people perceived in a cafeteria, that has completely changed. Customers are expecting less processed foods. They want to know whether are there any artificial ingredients that is added in this food, and if so, they try to avoid it. Everybody wants a clear labeling of what are the various attributes that gets associated with the food, right from being an organic food to a vegetarian or vegan food, or things like the new fads that is coming in from, is this food suitable for um, you know a, a keto diet, or I'm following a gluten-free diet, is this food suitable enough for me? More and more customers are getting more health conscious, they focus towards more well-being, and how technology and the digital experience that you're going to provide to them is going to play a vital role, is the basis of this entire analysis. People are taking a more holistic perspective of the food that they are eating. It is no more the traditional attributes of price and the taste of the food. People are taking things more seriously when it comes to what is in the food. Do I know exactly what contributes this food? How is it going to be helpful in terms of keeping me and my family healthy? More and more focus are getting in towards that particular direction. That seems to be another popular trend that is right there for the year 2020. Now, this chart actually gives you a perspective of exactly what are the things that consumers are more looking for when it comes to health and wellness. People want to know what type of grains they're eating, from the sugar, the diabetic and the sodium perspective. Are they having, are these food low in sodium and sugar content, whether it is high in fiber, and so on. And all this information, they want to know whether when they come to your cafeteria, when your consumer comes into your cafeteria and view it as part of their buying process, or even before coming to your cafeteria, be it an online purchase that they're making, whether they're trying to place an order from your cafeteria, or even before coming to your cafeteria, their perception of whether this cafeteria is providing me all this information in a readily available manner is actually playing a vital role in terms of influencing them whether to even come into your cafeteria or not. So, health and wellness and food safety seem to be, the next driving factor in the market. And this is also, as I said, influencing the customer in terms of paying a premium. Customers are ready. Both this analysis that was done by Deloitte as well as PricewaterhouseCoopers, it kind of derives to one conjuncture point. Customers are ready to pay premium in order to get a good customer experience. It doesn't really matter if you're running a coffee chain, or you're running a hospitality industry like a hotel, or providing various other service industries like tickets or cable subscriptions and so on. Everybody is perceiving that a good digital customer experience is vital in terms of what customer is perceiving as the participation, as well as they're ready to pay a premium in order to get that digital experience. Now, moving along to the third trend, customer loyalty is something which has always been a pivot for any successful hospitality agency. Now, one of the key things that is actually driving the customer loyalty is the engagement and the transparency that a cafe has, or an organization has, with their customers. The question that you probably have to ask yourself is, am I, as an individual or an agency who is running an agency, uh, could be a cafeteria, it could be a retail chain, it could be anything related to the hospitality industry, am I right now providing a mode to communicate in two ways, a two-way dialogue between me and my consumer? How efficiently am I doing it? Am I listening to the problems that my consumer has? Am I listening to the concerns that they are raising? Am I actually communicating the response back to them? If my consumer wants certain information, how am I providing that right now? Do I even know what my customer wants? So those are some of the questions that you may have to ask yourself. Enriching that experience automatically equates to a better customer engagement or a consumer engagement. According to a survey which was conducted on the food purchase, people, as I said, are more curious about what they're eating in terms of nutritional content, a clear labeling, and in terms of the brand loyalty. A statistics that was provided by Microsoft, an analysis that was done in the year 2019, says that out of approximately 13,000 consumers that they spoke with, close to 70% of these consumers in the US geography says that customer service is the key. How is the company that I deal with, be it a cafeteria, a retail, or a restaurant, or any of the hospitality chains that are there, how are they listening to my concerns? How are they providing me a timely solution in a more optimal manner? And that directly translates to the brand loyalty that these consumers are going to have with you. And according to this, the Deloitte the market research they've done, a one-way communication is actually less efficient in comparison to a personalized engagement and conversation that, basically you as a provider, provides this information to your consumers, which directly translating to building trust with the consumer base that you have. If you look at the way the food industry is transforming in the last 3 to 4 years, companies like Postmates, Uber Eats, DoorDash, their participation as well as their revenue has tripled. And in the last year alone, companies like DoorDash and Uber Eats, their revenue participation has increased by 40%. According to the CEO of Dunkin', he says uh, the millennials and Gen Z, they are the predominant players in terms of increasing this demand. And this is not only applicable to food industry. If you look at it, the demand for you know e-commerce solutions, think about it from the world of Amazon, or think about it from the streaming services and internet, like your Netflix, like Altis, how all these companies are actually growing. The statistics says that out of the participation of the consumers when it comes to restaurants, there is a spike of 26% in terms of how the ordering is made. The old traditional delivery mode of or ordering mode of going to the cafeteria and participating from there, people have changed that mode to ordering things online, be it food, clothes, books. I mean, even any household products that you need. The reason for this, if you look at it, is again the communication and the information that the consumer can actually perceive through these digital channels. If I am a consumer, let's say I want to know exactly what I'm eating, and I have a lactose intolerance, do you think I would be comfortable going to a cafeteria, trying to then analyze whether a particular food contains milk or dairy products, and assuming that information is being available to begin with? If it is not even available in the cafeteria, that is another bigger problem. But even before that, if I am making a choice, for me, I would be more comfortable if I actually perceive this information even before I go to this cafeteria, even before I know exactly what I'm going to eat. I will start looking at it and then exactly know whether this is the ideal place that I should be going, whether this cafeteria would suit me, and then I'll make a decision. Digital interface is being highly used by consumers to seek details of what they're eating, whether it could be customized for their need. And this is something which is driving the market to a large extent. Another key, trend that has been, it's been prevalent the year 2019 and 2020 is what we call as ghost kitchens. A lot of companies like, say, Eat Clean Bro or um, you know Blue Apron, they're all moving towards that direction where the millennials and the Gen Zs are placing the order of not even the finished food, but raw materials where they can actually receive it in their home, prepare their own food, and then consume it. So when we talk about online ordering, we're not just talking about consuming packaged goods. It's also about the raw ingredients with information about how to prepare it, whether that food is healthy or not. So the trend in that ghost kitchen is another thing which has been, you know, it's been rampant in the past couple of years. As you notice, the percentage of the online versus offline mode of ordering when it comes to the food space, based on the analysis done in 12 countries, the trend has been, from a lower care of you know 10 percentage, there have been more than uh, you know 45 to 50% of increment in terms of consumers ordering things online or consuming things by placing orders online. And that's basically what we call as the home delivery boom. Now, the last trend that we have is the influence of the majority of your consumers, or the consumers who is going to become the majority of the participants in your cafes and hospitality industries, the millennials and the Gen Zs. According to a Nielsen Global Health Survey, um, as I pointed out earlier, the millennials and the Gen Zs are the ones who are willing to pay a premium for healthy food. They are ready to consume food even if it is little expensive, as long as it meets certain criteria. Now, depending upon the consumer, the criteria could be different. Certain folks may be interested in consuming more healthy food, but health is a broad spectrum. Now, what I perceive as health, maybe I could be somebody who is focusing on vegetarian or vegan diet. There could be another consumer who is more focused on plant-based diets, or more interested in the farm to table philosophies. So depending upon what the consumers are expecting, the key outcome of all these things is customer need information. So irrespective of whether a person is expecting A to Z, are we having a channel or the medium to actually provide that information? Are we able to communicate and cascade this information to my consumer? Is my consumer having the ability to readily access these details pertaining to my cafeteria? Is something which is playing a vital role in this market today. As part of one of the research agencies' analysis, more and more millennials and the Gen Z consumers are the ones who participate in you know uh, going out and eating food. Out of the availability of your participation, the Gen Z alone, they make more than 1/10 of all the food traffic, be it online ordering or coming to your cafes and consuming the food. And of course, this all ties up to the health and wellness the consumers are expecting, as well as the readiness for the consumer to provide a premium for such food. As I was pointing out, the current generation, be it a Generation Z or Generation Alpha, or you know your the millennials, they are seeking information which pertains to their personalization. They are proud of that individuality that is out there in the market. So if there is a trend which was introduced new in the market, and if it is something that is suiting your consumers need, they are proud to wear that, and they are proud to follow that trend. They're valuing experience in a lot more higher percentage compared to the previous generations. Obviously, the younger generation are more prominent to consume new trends when it comes to the food, new type of diets, the new type of food that is out there in the market. One of the such diets that is currently trending is a plant-based diet, especially from the middle high school to the university student you know portfolio. There's been the consumption of plant-based diet is actually seen more favorable in comparison to a meat-based diet. The analysis that we have been doing also says that consumers become more socially responsible, and they actually perceive these companies, the cafeterias and the hospitality industry companies, value, and for them that is an important factor in terms of whether they are doing a business with you or not. So this greater sense of responsibility is something which is very prominently seen in the food industry. Now, these are some of the trends that, or rather the top 5 trends that we are seeing as, somebody who has been in this industry and conducting different researches, participating with different agencies, as well as being in, an IT expert. These are some of the key findings that we have. In terms of the summary of all these things, what the important key information that we have is something I will be talking about towards the end of this conversation. But what we feel, or rather what we see in the market is adapting to these trends can make or break your industry. Some of the examples of the companies which did not adapt to these growing trend, and it kind of paved way for their failure. You know, according to a PwC research that was done, up to 59% of US consumer will walk away from a particular brand if they receive a bad experience, a bad consumer interaction experience. And out of that, 17% could actually walk away if the experience is wrong, even at the first go. Companies like Howard Johnson, Chi-Chi's, Circuit City, they have borne the brunt of these consumers' expectation where companies like this couldn't actually meet it. I'm not going to get into the details of these companies. Most of you are familiar with them, um, where some companies try to reduce their customer service experience or they were not ready to adapt to the change and the demand and the trend of your consumers. These are some of the some of the industries which actually couldn't cope up with not only just the demand but also with their competitors who were more ready to actually adapt to these particular trends. And as a combined effect, they basically went out of market, or their market percentage kind of went to to a very a low extent. Some of the other customers or companies who were able to adapt to it, and they were able to provide these communication mechanism, the two-way communication mechanism with the consumers, a better, a convenient, and a sturdy customer experience, they were able to become more successful, be it an American Express, a CVS, or the ever readily available example out there in the market for all of us to know is Amazon. Now, according to Jeff Bezos, the differentiating factor between Amazon to any other company, if you take there is one reason why Amazon was successful in comparison to any other consumer, any other competitor out there in the market, it is customer experience. Innovation, if you have the capability and you have the resources to innovate of your own, or work with vendors, participants who are pioneers in this innovation, who are doing the innovation and participating with them to provide that experience to a consumer is something which is vital, according to Jeff Bezos. Now, to summarize, before we move on to the Q&A session, as part of today's transformation, for the year 2020 in the food and the hospitality industry. Some of the common trends, the top 5 trends that we have noticed is the expectation in terms of speed, convenience, and services. How consumers are expecting health and wellness, not only in their own life, but in their families, as well as in their extended family's life, as well as in the organization that they are part of. How is loyalty and transparency playing a vital role in terms of uh, providing the necessary uh, requests that the consumer have? The boom in the e-commerce, and how is that something which is going to be related to the business that you are in? The participation of millennials and Gen Zs who form the major chunk of your consumer base, how is their how are they valuing the experience in terms of personalization and data that they are expecting for? How is it changing? These are some of the key things that we looked at as part of today's webinar. Of course, in terms of providing all these things, the key here is there are companies who have the resources, they have the strength to actually do these researches, and they have the ability to invest and able to form their own digital experience, the branding and the communication channels. There are other organizations who who participate with agencies like us, Fulcrum Digital, or any other vendors who are out there in the market to actually utilize what has already been tried and tested by other companies and utilize that too. So with that, I'll hand over this session to Chris. Chris, over to you.
Thank you, Abby. And again, we are at the Q&A session of this webinar. Again, if you have any questions, now is the time to submit them in the questions pane within GoToWebinar. We'll be answering as many questions as we can. If we are unable to answer any question due to time constraints, we will have Abby email you immediately after as soon as we can. So with that, Abby, we have the first question, and it's regarding the person says that they say that data is also a trend that they're very interested in, especially customer data. So they said, as user data is collected when customers order through an app, how can companies use that data to support their business?
Well, it depends upon the type of information that is being collected. Now, there are new laws that are being introduced in the market in terms of what type of data is something which can be consumed and what is that information that could be shared. Now, any information that the consumer is actually providing it to you, obviously it is readily available for you to analyze and consume. There is no problem there, right? None of this universal laws that are being introduced, be it in the European market or the North American market or Asiatic market, it prevents you from utilizing that data. Yes, you have a mechanism to actually to receive that data to begin with, and do you have tools and tool sets with you to analyze the data? That's another question altogether. Where it becomes tricky is how do you utilize the data where you can share it with other external agencies, and that's where things become a bit more murkier. But it is suffice to say that as the service provider, you can very well utilize the data. There is no law which prevents you from analyzing the data and derive statistics out of it, which could be used to for the betterment of your for your organization. And assuming that this is a data that you can you directly interact with the customer and you're able to receive it and you're able to process it. To be clear.
Great, thank you. Next question. You spoke of loyalty and transparency as a trend. How can technology be used to create brand ambassadors? Specifically, what role does social media play?
Well, In the world of marketing, there is something called an omni-channel marketing communication. It's a very interesting question, actually, whoever asked that. Um, Traditional cafes, if you look at it, they have their own way of branding and customer outreach, conduct different programs, the loyalty and so on, right? You go to a cafeteria, you know this is a particular unique cafe. They have their own unique branding, assuming they have done some branding. They provide you certain information. What is changing now is the provision of this information, the ability to communicate. Number one, as I said, the consumers are demanding that information even before they walk into your cafeteria. People want to go into Yelp, people want to go to your website, people want to know what you are providing. Is your menu having certain type of diets? Can you tell me if the food is organic in nature or gluten free in nature? Consumer wants to know what's the price of the item even before they walk in. They want to know what they're paying for, what is the type of service that it is there. So these are the consumers that you are that they have to face in the change in with the type of market that you are in. Now that said, these are the consumers who can also be loyal to you depending upon how you present this information. As long as your service and your communication is up to the mark, you can expect your brand to be improved, as well as your consumer to also be more loyal to you. Number one. And number two, technology is something which these consumers are more attenuated towards. So providing this experience in a digital manner, as I originally said about through the omni-channel communication, instead of just providing that information after your consumers have walked into your cafe, do you have ways of printing this information and providing the data to your consumer? Do you have mechanism to contact your customer through emails? Do you have any app or a website where your consumers can actually go in and view what is offering for today, whether my food has certain allergies, certain dietary capabilities, and so on? Consumers want to know, even when they pass through your cafeteria, are there any digital displays that you have, kiosks, which actually provide your consumers all this information? So these are certain things what the consumer is expecting, and providing this digital experience would directly translate to a better a branding, as well as a better base of loyal customer.
Great. Our next question, how should we expect the trends presented to accelerate or to modify, quote, back to basics, given the current pandemic crisis impacting heavily this sector?
Oh, that's true. If you ask anybody, be it industrial expert or not, it's obvious that one of the key industry which has been hit by the ongoing pandemic and crisis is the hospitality and the food industry. Now, yes, how can this, in a way, be an instigator for change, right? One common trend that has been observed is one of the points that I was talking about with regards to trend. The home delivery boom. Do you have an e-commerce solution with you? Do you have a supplier base with you? Are you partnering with agencies who can actually do it for you? Important thing. At the end of the day, food is one you know uh, area which will last forever. The trend and the expectations of your consumer on how they receive the food may change, but food is ever present. That said, as long as you are able to adapt to these trends, none of these pandemics can dent anything that relates to how your company or how your cafe operates. There may be a minor flux that may be viewed in the next few months with regards to this pandemic, but your consumer base is going to come back to you. This is not something where they're going to change. They're going to stop coming to your cafeteria. Number one, as long as you're uh, positioned in the right manner to provide them that digital experience, you will actually start seeing a trend of consumer coming to you more than how it was before. You will also be seeing trends like how people are perceiving their health and wellness post this pandemic. People have already started viewing it. Now it is going to accelerate. So to me, it is even more vital to be, you know, having that capability to provide these digital experience and a consumer experience as well as communicating with your customer.
Great. Thank you, Abby. That is all the time we have for today. If there was any questions that you have, you're able to email them to us at info@fulcrumdigital.com. Well, of course, we're always here to be reached at any means. If not by email, you can give us a call, 201-523-7555, or visit our website, fulcrumdigital.com. As a thank you for those who are able to join us for this webinar, we're happy to offer you a free consultation regarding any of these trends, how they may impact your business, or if you need any assistance. We're happy to have a conversation. No commitment whatsoever, just a matter of mind sharing. It's a big mantra here at the Fulcrum Digital, and we just want to make sure that we help customers and help businesses, especially during this time, as discussed during this last question. So with that, I would like to thank Abhilash for presenting for us. It's a great webinar. And again, a recording will be sent out, so you'll be able to review it anytime. But again, Abby, thank you very much.